a region in the eye of the storm. Homes gone, lives destroyed. Do you know how many homes here, like what percentage of the homes here were damaged in Hurricane Helene?
So I would say like probably about 50%.
1 year later, and who is coming to help?
Officials from the Trump administration have been here to Western North Carolina, to Swannanoa in my district, which was ground zero, and we're still not seeing the movement.
As President Trump threatens to cut federal disaster relief, people in North Carolina say they have been forgotten and that they are caught in a political battle.
We want to wean off of FEMA, and we want to bring it down to the state level.
The system's not just fundamentally broken, it is dead, it's devastated.
North Carolina, it's a hotspot for tourism. There's natural beauty, forests, mountains, and waterways. But it's also highly vulnerable to America's increasingly frequent extreme weather events. More than a year ago, Hurricane Helene tore through this part of the North Carolina mountains. The storm surge and the wind was so extreme that it rewrote the paths of rivers up here. It tore trees out of the ground, and it destroyed countless homes. Right now, I'm on my way to meet with some people who were directly affected in that storm, whose homes and livelihoods were lost. I want to talk to them about the federal response, the cleanup in the days and months after the storm. I want to find out if they felt they got enough support. This storm comes at a time when the Trump administration is planning to rework the entire way the government does emergency management. I want to find out if they think that's a good idea.
I went to a friend of mine's house up top of the hill, stayed up there and watched as the water rose higher and higher and higher and higher. Within, by what I hear, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but what I hear is we got 15 inches in around an hour and a half.
Hurricane Helene approached North Carolina around 8 a.m. on September 27, 2024. What unfolded next was widespread destruction, flooding, landslides, and devastating winds across the southern Appalachian.
Most of the damage was done to the roof and to my plumbing. When the water come under, it washed all my plumbing, insulation, everything away, and it moved my trailer slightly. But the wind, because there must have been something wrong with my roof. It was an old trailer. Yeah. So every time it blow down, when you're standing inside the trailer, you could see the ceiling go down every time the wind would blow. And you could hear the rafters and the cracking and popping.
At least 250 people were killed. Helene was the deadliest Atlantic hurricane since Hurricane Maria in 2017, and the deadliest to strike the U.S. mainland since Hurricane Katrina in 2005.
I got the 750 from FEMA, which just about everybody else did. But other than that, there wasn't no government help. We got Corps help and we got National Guard help, but we didn't get no government help.
Did you expect more help from the government?
I was hoping for more help from the government, but, well, it didn't happen. Obviously, back in the blizzard of 1993, it was one of the largest snowstorms we had seen in years. FEMA was supposed to come help then. Nobody showed up. So we took care of ourselves, and we did have groups like Corps, and well, of course, it wasn't Corps back then. I don't even know if Corps even existed back then, but we did have charitable help and stuff, and then the neighborhood, just like around after the storm, neighbors got together with neighbors, and then people like Corps and other places from out of state came in and helped. But sadly, even our own state government didn't really do nothing for us.
What was that process like, FEMA applying for money?
Well, they had to come out, assess the damage. You had to fill out a little bit of paperwork and give them your ID and all that stuff, you know. And but other than that, that's about all I had to do. And now there's a it's also another thing that they've gotten started up to help people in this disaster. It's North Carolina funded. I've been talking to a lady. She's my caseworker. I don't know if I'm going to get the help or not, but I'm expecting to hear something from her in the next couple of weeks.
From August 2025, FEMA disbursed approximately $1.3 billion in aid. In September 2025, more funds were released, but people in North Carolina are still waiting on more much-needed funds. As somebody who's gone through this storm and experienced FEMA, how do you think that the federal emergency management system needs to change to help people like you?
The system's not just fundamentally broken; it is dead. It's devastated. It's beyond fundamentals now. With the way things are going now, no, we're not going to get the help we need. I ain't gonna say that I believe that Trump's going to do it, or the next president's going to do it, or the next Congress is going to do it.
In November, North Carolina's Attorney General filed a lawsuit against FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security to secure $17 million in already promised disaster relief. As FEMA has begun to see cuts to its funding under the Trump administration, the knock-on effect is in communities like this, with homes still damaged and unlivable from Hurricane Helene more than a year ago. As high-level administration officials wrangle over money and how organizations like FEMA should be changed or gotten rid of completely, these people living in these small communities are still struggling to rebuild.
How does CORE work? Are you rebuilding homes?
So basically, we're rebuilding the home from all the way down to the studs. We prepare them, and we put new insulation, new drywall, new flooring, new roof. I mean, everything really. New HVAC system. We also have been elevating all the homes, especially the homes that were completely flooded. As far as if they were flooded, like a foot or more, we gotta completely gut that home. And also we had to elevate it, hoping that in the future, if something were to happen, this would not happen to that family again.
How many homes is CORE working to rebuild following Hurricane Helene?
So right now we have rebuilt 25 homes in the first program. Right now we're working on to 50 more. So far of that total, we have rebuilt about 45.
Do you think the federal government needs to be more involved?
I definitely think the federal government needs to be involved for sure. CORE, right now we are here, we are rebuilding this community, but we're not gonna be here for, 10 years doing this. So the only work we have done with FEMA is helping the community apply for benefits. And some people have received benefits from FEMA as well.
Was housing insurance or rental insurance not covering the storm damage?
So most of the mobile homes we worked with, they don't have insurance. People generally don't buy insurance for their mobile homes. You will see that in actual stick-built homes, but not in homes like this. If it is a double wide, maybe we'll have insurance, but that has not been the case with our community.
Helene caused an estimated $78.7 billion worth of damage.
There was a trailer here that was taken out already. There were two right here. So this small creek, you'll see how small it is, but it became like a huge river. I would think the water probably, so that house right there, water got inside that home about a foot. So probably, we're talking about maybe this high.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Do you know how many homes here, what percentage of the homes here were damaged in Hurricane Helene?
So I would say that probably about 50%.
Wow.
We're just hoping that doesn't happen, of course. But, again, get back to ground zero and start rebuilding again. That's what I can tell you.
The damage came in many forms. Landslides, debris flows, and historic levels of flooding surrounded and destroyed homes, businesses, parks, hospitals, the electrical, solar, and water infrastructure, and damaged thousands of roads. The tourism industry has taken a severe hit.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA.
Since taking office, President Trump has repeatedly suggested eliminating FEMA, and has even suggested getting rid of the organization by as early as 2025. Under the Trump administration, FEMA has lost more than 10% of its workforce over the last 12 months, and is projected to lose nearly 30% by the end of this year. Federal aid delays have already affected the communities of North Carolina. Local Representative Lindsey Prather has agreed to talk to me about the situation here. Why is your district so important to understanding Hurricane Helene?
North Carolina is a long state, and Western North Carolina oftentimes feels very far away from our state government, both obviously geographically. We're 4 hours away from Raleigh right now, but also just in terms of maybe getting the support and resources that we feel like the rest of the state gets. And so, we felt cut off because of the storm, but also we're really worried about how we were going to get resources to our area from outside.
Why do you think federal aid has been so slow to be distributed?
I've been asking myself that question a lot. At first I thought that maybe the money wasn't coming because folks just didn't understand, the impact and the devastation out here. The folks just hadn't heard the stories from constituents, but we're more than a year past now, and I know that government officials at all levels have heard the stories. They've seen the devastation. Officials from the Trump administration have been here to Western North Carolina, to Swannanoa in my district, which was ground zero, and we're still not seeing the movement. The way that it's happened in North Carolina, so, as I said, we're sort of isolated out here in the mountains, and so, from day one, local governments, communities, counties, as well as cities and towns, they have had to step up and pay for recovery themselves. And then even after things opened up and we were able to get other folks here into the region to help, a lot of the burden of paying for recovery has fallen on the counties and the small towns out here in Western North Carolina. In some places, the state has been able to reimburse them. I will say I don't believe that the state legislature has put in as much money as we should into recovery, and I've been pushing for more money from Raleigh. But of course, we need more money from DC as well.
If the oceans and atmosphere continue to warm, sea levels along the Florida coast are likely to rise 1 to 4 feet in the next century. Climate change experts say the situation across the eastern seaboard of the United States is becoming increasingly dangerous.
Florida is the canary in the coal mine with respect to sea level rise. We're a very low-lying state. The highest places in our state are maybe 100 meters high, if that. And there's a lot of low-lying land. And so as sea level rises, and it's projected to be anywhere from 1 to 2, maybe more meters, by the end of the century, 2100, we're going to see a lot of coastal inundation. And there are two responses that we have here that we can employ. One is mitigation, and that's doing something about climate change, reducing our CO2 footprint, capturing methane before it escapes to the atmosphere. Here in Tallahassee, we always worry about hurricanes. We're always got our eyes out for hurricanes. So in the spring of 2024, we were just very blissful. We knew hurricane season was approaching, but it wasn't here yet, and so we were not so worried. And on the morning of May 10th, I got up, as I usually do, to make coffee for my wife and myself. And as I was getting up, I heard my phone go off with this alarm. And it was a tornado warning. I thought, wow, I never worry about those. We get those all the time. I don't worry about them. But this time I looked at the radar on the weather on the phone, and there was this big red rainy spot coming right at us. All of a sudden, we heard this tree just lying down on our house. And it was terrifying, and it caused us over $120,000 worth of damage. It took us months to get it fixed. And we just moved back in June of 25. So we were living in a damaged house and out of our house for over a year.
As the threat from climate change grows, Americans are left wondering how the government will deal with the ongoing hurricanes and weather events, and what would happen if the president cuts FEMA.
The government is responding by requiring higher and higher, stricter and stricter building codes, and that the houses that are built near the shore are stronger or armed, and that's a fine plan, but that does make a lot of the coastal houses out of reach of a lot of people. Well, with regard to cutting FEMA, I think that would be a tremendous mistake. We need people to come and help other people after disasters. It just has to be something that we do as a society.
FEMA has been riddled with controversy, and the uncertainty inside the organization is growing due to political pressure. Many FEMA employees have voiced concerns about the threat of the federally funded body.
In the United States, we have a national agency called FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And the way it works in the United States with any kind of disaster recovery is, and this might be new to some people, it's really a local effort. It's important for all local governments to be able to address the needs of their citizens, their public health and safety. When local governments can't do that, then states have mechanisms to step in. So you might have heard about different state offices of emergency management. It's when the states have their capabilities or capacity exceeded that FEMA comes in to provide additional support. So FEMA is more of an administrative agency. With a natural disaster like a hurricane, something that's a little bit larger in focus than a tornado, you know that your capacity is going to be exceeded. So the state will be there to support the local governments. It's really when it's a bigger event that FEMA will step in. So I know there's been some conversations about the role of FEMA and whether FEMA should even exist as an agency. And FEMA really, over the many decades, has improved significantly. A blind spot with FEMA has always been the speed in which they can respond, both initially in the short term, but also in the long-term administration of disaster recovery grants. So these are areas where I think there does need to be some focus. Does giving it back to the states necessarily make sense? Perhaps, but I think that that's a conversation that needs to happen at the national level with experts in the field. For most Americans, most of us aren't going to get any FEMA money. So FEMA may come to your house, they may evaluate the fact that there were damages to help the state get a disaster declaration, to get additional resources, but the individual homeowner won't get FEMA money. Or the monies might just be a small check to cover your losses of food in your refrigerator or something like that. So you are relying on your insurance company. And so it's very important for individuals, small businesses and homeowners and renters to understand what's in your insurance policy. I think that a lot of folks just misunderstand what FEMA is supposed to do. FEMA is not the National Guard. FEMA is not coming in to the rescue to your community. They're there to help provide additional state resources or resources to states to help coordinate post-disaster grants to get the community rebuilt. I think that there was some expectation that it was almost like a force, like a National Guard that would come in. And that was really bad information. In Hurricane Helene, there was more bad information than I've ever seen in my life after a natural disaster. And I think it was because the disaster was occurring during a political frame. And so I think that many folks these days have been polarized by politics, by what they read in the news, and really follow what the captain of their team says is true, rather than relying on good science and good information and experts.
Back in North Carolina, and I've heard about a group of locals who took matters into their own hands when federal help didn't arrive. I'm back in Asheville to meet with Chrissy Atkins, who runs a relief center set up and funded entirely by community members.
How long are you going to keep this community center going? Well, we want to buy the building. If not this building, then we want to buy some land. The guy has given us 6 months now, and we have to pay rent, $3,500 a month, which is going to be hard.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. We've gotten some money. We have a GoFundMe, and we, got other different ways of people sending us checks and stuff like that, and we put it in the bank, holding it, hoping, that we'll get enough money. We've tried for grants. They don't like to give grants to people just starting out because they don't know if they're going to stay or not, but I want to be a permanent community relief and resilience hub.
Do you think you guys will ever get that federal aid that you were promised?
No, probably not. It is frustrating and it's aggravating. I mean, there's so many people that come in here for help. And FEMA helps people that with their first house, their only house they own. Well, some people own a second house and they rent it out. Well, they won't fix that house. But there's people that was actually living in that house, and now they're homeless. They're in a camper. I don't know how many people we've put in campers around here. And it's ridiculous. People should not have to live like that. I mean, we need help just as much as Asheville or Washington, D.C. or New York, The big places, big names, they get all the help. We get nothing. And that's, like the flood, right after our flood in Texas, They got more help than we did.
What would happen now to this community if another storm like Helene came in?
It would devastate us right now. We're not fixed back. Of course, we'll never be normal again. We'll get stuff fixed back eventually. Everybody's still helping everybody. Eventually. I think it'll be years. It could be up to 5 years. But, if we was to get hit again before we got this fixed, it would be devastating.
The debate over the future of FEMA may be taking place hundreds of miles away in Washington, D.C. But it is the local economy here that continues to suffer, particularly the small businesses in Asheville that rely on the tourism.
Everything got hit by debris, and a massive amount of debris. So there were box trucks and shipping containers, and really there was a great cleanup effort on that big level. Down by the river, I kept seeing these boats come in when the river was high enough, and they would start taking out the big stuff.
And if we were here at the time of the storm, we would be underwater right now.
Yeah, we'd be underwater, but the water, the main thing to remember with the water and the way it flows differently from Florida where I'm from, it's rushing. It is ripping through and pulling entire box trucks down into buildings, and so it's just this massive rushing current. But we'd be underwater by about probably 20 feet.
Mark Oliver and his wife are woodworkers who opened a local craft business in the area. Hurricane Helene tore through the building, destroying everything. So how long had you guys had this shop before the flood came?
So my wife and I have been a part of the business for 8 years, and we bought it 3 years ago. When Helene hit, we had 20 people working back here. We represented 65 local woodworkers in the gallery. And so we had the complete shop destroyed, 100 grand worth of equipment just gone.
As FEMA remains in jeopardy, the people of North Carolina are still fighting for assistance in rebuilding their lives.
I feel like North Carolina, Western North Carolina, we're caught up in a game. We're caught up in a political strategy, and unfortunately we weren't in a stationary position where we have experienced recovery amongst a political change. And within that, we're people, we're humans. There's people that have hurt way more than we were that aren't being supported. I'm tired of being in a political game. I want to just be allowed to be a person that's contributing to a community. And I think a lot of the Appalachian spirit is government's failed us so much that we just take care of it.
America First is a phrase almost synonymous with the MAGA movement. Yet many on both the right and the left see people in North Carolina still without homes and businesses that cannot get back on their feet. They look to Washington, D.C., where they see more news of wrangling over federal money, which is often being allocated elsewhere, even overseas, to conflict that does not involve the American people. If the people of North Carolina, or Florida, Tennessee, or Louisiana are still waiting for scraps of federal money to replace a damaged roof or clear a flooded road, how long will it be before more people start asking the question, is Washington, D.C. really putting America first?